Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody, wherever you are. Welcome to the Vegan World 2026 Moonshot podcast. And today I'm really excited to speak with Dr. Kiran Ahuja of PETA India and Pareen Sachdeva about the Amul PETA debate that's happening in the mainstream media in India. Okay, but before I bring them on board, I want to read something to you, which I just got in my mail today. So both of these. The first is a message from Dr. Nandita Shah of Sharon, India. And she said, she wrote, I grew up as a dairy loving vegetarian. I drank 3 glasses of milk a day, and then yogurt, buttermilk, cheese, paneer, and other dairy products. But everything changed when I understood the cruelty of the dairy industry. Cows are repeatedly impregnated so that they continue supplying milk. Baby calves are taken away from their mothers so that the milk that rightfully belongs to them could be sold. Male calves are sold to the leather industry soon after birth. I couldn't be a part of it anymore. It was only after I stopped consuming dairy that I understood why dairy is so bad for health. My skin cleared up, menstrual cramps disappeared, cold, coughs, and fevers almost never occurred. Weight loss happened by itself. I had more energy and my state of mind improved dramatically. And most importantly, it helped me recover from an autoimmune disease. Julian Barr. Today, a lot more people know about the dangers of dairy. Plant-based milks and other dairy alternatives are available everywhere for good reason. But India still has one of the largest populations of bovines in the world and the highest production of milk. Dairy production is one of the biggest causes of ecological destruction. We can change this. If this is as daunting to you as it was for me, decide to try only for 1 month and see the results. So that was the message I got from Dr. Nandita Shah, and I wanted to read it out to you because I think it's so appropriate for this discussion that we are having today. And the second was a message from Philip Wallen. Philip Wallen, he now lives in Australia, but he was born in Bangalore. He was raised in Bangalore. He attended Bishop Cotton's school in Bangalore. So he wrote this. He said, a message to all my Indian friends. I funded this film, The Plastic Cow, to show how plastic in the filthy Indian streets is another cruel vector force in the wild dairy industry. The gentle cow has played a vital role in the Indian character and culture. The deep spirituality of a wise and old civilization rests on the reverence Indians show to this noble and docile being. But India has lost her way, bringing shame on her forefathers who faithfully venerated that blessed cow. The blood that stains our hands is also on our souls, indelible and fatal. They have turned this venerated being into a scavenging god, exploited by day and turned loose at night to survive in the garbage dump on food scraps, with over 50 pounds of plastic, wire, and rubbish embedded in her stomach. Small wonder that the Supreme Court in Delhi has said that plastic in the streets poses a greater threat to India than nuclear war. It is time for India to reclaim her spiritual land of Ahimsa, that beautiful place where all living beings meet in compassion and love. This cannot happen while the sacred cow is used, abused, and destroyed. These crimes are committed against the innocent cow by those who falsely claim to hold her dear to their hearts. Indians can no longer boast that the rights of animals are enshrined in their national constitution. They have pawned Gandhi's compassion for ignoble greed. It is time for India to say what she means and mean what she says. Cruelty to cows is an Indian crime committed by Indian hands on Indian soil. The path to redemption is inscribed in the Indian heart. It must not be littered with human detritus which kills our cows and poisons our creed. The cow is still doing for India what she has done for millennia, showing us the way to live noble, wise, and clean lives. No wonder she's worshipped. If you love cows, you will not kill her child so you can steal her milk. If you love cows, you will not wear her skin on your feet. If you love cows, you will give her food, water, and a clean home. Only when you treat cows with the deepest reverence can you claim to understand the Indian spirit. If you don't understand the Indian spirit, you're not fit to be called a true Indian. And that was from Philip Wallen. It's very moving, to me. And for me, India is my mother. Though I consider myself now a world citizen, I belong to the whole planet. And my granddaughter gave me that gift because she is half Indian, one quarter African, and one quarter Native American. And I see all of humanity in her. But my mother is India, and my heart, I was born there. It belongs to India. So I want to welcome now Dr. Kiran Ahuja and Pareen Sachdeva. Thank you so much for being here. It's a pleasure to welcome you.
Thank you, Salish. The pleasure is all mine.
So tell us how did you think about sending this letter to Amul, and when did you send it?
Okay, so PETA had sent a letter earlier also to Amul, just encouraging them to start having an alternative vegan milk business and letting them know about the, upgrowing vegan trend in India.
Mm-hmm.
And this second letter was also a part of the series. And Amul recently came up with a full page ad, demeaning plant-based milk, talking about
Mm-hmm.
how it's an imitation milk. And we wanted to tell them that, smart businesses would not fight an upgrowing business. In fact, businesses abroad have ventured into plant milk business, the mainstream dairy businesses,
Mm-hmm.
like Nestle or Danone or Unilever. They have ventured into vegan plant or plant milk business, and they could do the same rather than fighting the upgoing trend. And Epigami, which is India's own dairy product company, also offer vegan coconut milk, dessert, and almond milk, and Amul can do the same. So,
Right.
a simple letter with statistics.
Right. So when did that letter go out? It's the second letter
So the letter went out in August.
in August. Okay. So when did they react like this? I mean, why are they reacting so?
So you're talking about the initial letter or the recent one?
This recent one,
Or the recent one went out this month.
this month. Okay. And so they reacted so it's as if they're panic stricken by this whole thought of going plant based, right?
Yes, an overreaction.
An overreaction.
Yes.
So, Pareen, I know you've been following this and you've been following the debate as it's happening. And so, how is the vegan movement talking about this in India?
Very pertinent question. Within the movement itself and without, the narratives are vastly opposed. But within the movement, it is being considered as a win
Hmm.
because it is bringing this issue into the mainstream.
Right.
And considering the response that people has given and how they seem to be flailing at the hands of an up and coming industry which is not even which is nowhere in comparison to the size of Amul, uh, we are actually looking forward to Amul using its network to usher in a whole new operation and flood India with plant-based milk.
Right. Yeah. So, I mean, I know that the Amul CEO or managing director was saying that 80% of the people who who produce milk don't have their own land. Okay, so if 80% of the people don't have their own land, how are they feeding their animals? Do you know? How are they feeding their animals?
So in India, most of these kettles are, grazed on forest land, which is
Mm-hmm.
another one huge reason for, the forest being burned down, and the ecological crisis that we are in.
Mm-hmm.
And other than that, of course, it's Amul is no longer exclusively for poor corporation, and they source their milk from large tabelas as well. And these large tabelas have some have over 10 kettle, and some have over 100 200 kettle. And these kettle are largely fed soybean and
Mm-hmm.
grain that can be fed to humans instead, and machine milked. So the entire outlook of Amul today is not the same as it was earlier.
Mm-hmm.
And this 80% of the farmers being landless, and Amul being a corporation exclusively for poor, this entire outlook is changing.
Right, right. So fundamentally, what you're saying is that those landless people who are supplying milk are actually feeding their animals on public land.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. So essentially, the public is subsidizing the milk production, is what you're saying. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So if that's the case, can't the government and the public decide to help these farmers start planting trees like coconut trees or almond trees, so they can produce almond milk or coconut milk or whatever, or cashew milk for that matter?
I'm sure. As I had highlighted, India is a tropical country and has over 45,000 species of different kind of plants. And
Hmm.
the soil is so rich. We can do great if we were to be an entirely plant agricultural country. And having said that, there are examples. The farmers in Tamil Nadu and Kerala are already earning over $19 million USD a year by selling jackfruit, which
Hmm.
is popularly being used as a vegan alternative to meat. And
Right.
this is just one example. And I'm sure we can similarly produce soybean to make soy milk. And we can have coconut. We already have so much of coconut plantation. And coconut milk industry is also huge. And if I have to really talk about the figures, the plant-based industry is growing in India, and according to recent analysis by Texai Research, the Indian dairy alternative is projected to grow by a compound annual growth rate of 20% to reach 63 million by the year 2024. So it's a huge industry. And the farmers, as well as these dairy companies like Amul and others, can benefit by venturing into it.
Yeah. Preeti Gopal has commented that the irony is that Amul makes delicious vegan dark chocolate. Is that true?
That's true. And in fact, they have just launched their peanut butter, which they call peanut spread. And so, yes, they have vegan chocolates and peanut butter. They
Yeah.
all have it. And I think it's just a matter of time. They should get into vegan milk business as well. And that's what we have been encouraging them to do.
Right. It looks like, they may be panic stricken because the writing is on the wall that the vegan movement is growing exponentially, and they probably want to control it so that it doesn't get too fast, right? Grow too fast on them. What do you think?
Absolutely, and there's no denial about the cruelty that exists. There's no
Right.
denial about it. Now everybody knows, it's right in front of everybody, that for a cattle to produce milk, they need to be pregnant, or they need to give birth to calf. And for that, that doesn't happen naturally at at the rate that would be profitable for these industries to run. So they are artificially impregnated, and that process, the entire process of artificial impregnation, is no less than a rape, because these kettles are, these struggling kettles are held on to forcibly, and farmers, and I'm really talking about farmers, not even veterinarians. These are not trained in. They put the entire arms into their vaginas along with a rod filled with and they impregnate them, and that's not the end of it. They have been given oxytocin injections so that the milk production increases, and they can earn more profit out of it. So I do not really see this as the kettle being kept as a family member, as earlier used to happen in India. So they are just there for profit, and once they are spent, once they are dry, they are sold off to the beef industry. And the beef industry is the real truth of the dairy industry, because in India there is no such thing as cattle reared exclusively for beef, and yet we are the topmost suppliers of beef in the world, and this industry is supported by the dairy industry.
Right. So the Pareen, the vegan movement, okay, in India is still nascent, even though I would say that India has this tremendous advantage that the fundamental diet of India is vegan to begin with. I mean, idli sambar, and I grew up eating that, and roti sabji. I mean, this is vegan throughout. When you go to villages, they're eating vegan food. None of them are really eating the paneer that we eat in the cities, right? In the villages, they're mostly eating vegan food. So, how do you see the growth of the vegan movement, and how do you see it, at least on the ground? Do you see it exploding?
This is really important to talk about. But firstly, I would like to say, even if we will not be treating the cattle as fully as we do, it would still be a gross mismanagement of the whole species.
Hmm.
Because firstly, animals are not in a position, well, we are not in a position to take consent from animals to be able to use them in any way whatsoever, or to extract anything from them that we may desire or deem to be a necessity. So, because a lot of farmers, even small, whether it's small scale or large scale farmers in India, do claim that they keep their cattle like their family. They celebrate with them, they pray to them, they feed them with all kinds of dry fruits and nuts, etc., etc. What people tend to forget is that ultimately they're doing all this to be able to extract something from those cattle. So it becomes a transactional relationship, which we have not essentially taken consent for.
Right.
So, yeah. So to people who say that the dairy industry is not cruel, even if you're not doing something cruel at the very outset, this practice is true at the baseline. And with respect to how it's growing in India, yes, more and more people are realizing that it's not about the cost, it's not about the gourmet vegan specialty items that are being offered. Veganism is way beyond that. And I'm seeing a lot of that in the daily conversations that we have been having across social media platforms. That's the major way we are interacting these days,
Right.
given the situation. So whether it's apps like Discord or Clubhouse or Instagram, we are able to hear from vegans across the country who were either did not have the space to make their voice heard, or were just on the sidelines because they were maybe not comfortable speaking out. And we're hearing from all these different people today who who are going vegan for the animals, right? Now, whether the diet is a starting point or the last point of your transition, a lot of people go vegan for health and they adopt a whole food plant-based diet
Mhm.
and keep educating themselves and then fully go vegan through other lifestyle changes that they bring, whether it's, boycotting circuses or using cruelty-free products or, trying to rescue and support animals and animal sanctuaries. It is also the other way around for a lot of people, especially in animal welfare circles and people who are rescuing animals, providing shelter, providing treatment, who, when their switch clicks and they realize that, okay, I am rescuing these dogs and cats, and some people are even rescuing pigs and cows. And then the story is completely different on the dinner table. And I'm really happy to report that we're coming across more and more people who are making that connection and moving away from this speciesist conditioning
Mhm.
of caring for certain kinds of animals and using others. So
Right.
it's only onwards and upwards.
Right. So, fundamentally, I see the culture of venerating cows is really a culture of venerating all life, treating all life as sacred. Cow is just a symbol of of the animal kingdom. So, this is why I see there being a um, there's reluctance in the West to kind of acknowledge the Hindu ethos of this, because there is a fundamental relationship in economics of a transactional there's a transactional relationship between animals and humans. Okay, it's what can we get out of the animal, which uh, as soon as we talk about the cow is being sacred, you are overturning that, right? This is fundamentally there is this uh, dichotomy that we face between our economy and our culture. So how do we address that, Dr. Ahuja?
So I think for India, it's pretty easy because a lot of our population is already vegetarian, and
Mhm.
a lot of them are purely for the reason that the religion, ask us to follow the virtue of ahimsa,
Mhm.
and that's been a basis of people being vegetarian in India. Is not harming animals, and it's really sad that uh, I don't know how these companies have managed to put a blind side over the cruelty that goes behind the dairy industry, and a lot of these vegetarians who by virtue would want to follow ahimsa and violence are also contributing to it unknowingly by consuming dairy, and that's a main reason why the vegan movement in India is growing, because now that everything is in front of people, and there have been so many undercover investigations done by so many animal welfare
Mhm.
organizations and similar things, and so many good documentaries that are released in India and across the world, and people are now getting to know the dark side of the dairy industry, and I think that has really made the impact, and more and more people, as Pareen rightly said, we hear from, and we know are really making that switch. And I think a decade ago nobody knew what the term vegan means,
Mhm.
and now it's almost the most trending topic. In fact, it trends on Twitter, and it's all there on almost every newspaper every coming week, and it's really something that people have taken upon themselves, and people are really being aware, and with the environmental crisis being so grave, I think the youth is really fending onto this vegan movement.
Mhm. Awesome. That's so wonderful to hear. And I sympathize with those who thought that dairy industry is harmless, because I used to think that way. you know, until the scales got removed from my eyes, and I could see what was going on. Um, and I know the people in the villages, they do try to treat the animals well. They are trying their best, but they're stuck in an economic system that demands that they create, that they get milk from the cow to for money. Otherwise, there is nothing else they can sell at the moment, right? So when the demand changes, I see people, in the villages also changing with the demand. So, uh, Pareen, the, speaking of the youth and how fast are the youth taking it up compared to older people?
Oh, I could talk about a broader perspective and also a very narrow what I see. So I'll first talk about my personal experience with my family.
Hmm.
My parents have been way more open to it than my own siblings, my younger
Ah.
siblings, because for a lot of there's a difference in how youth and elders perceive dairy and meat consumption. For the elders, it has mostly been about health.
Hmm.
Okay, ghee is important. Tarawat aayegi sharir mein, for your blood to flow and all of your organs to flow smoothly, all of your systems to flow smoothly, and milk for bones, because so they consider these, especially dairy, as something to be pure and pious and
Hmm.
more like like it's revered. For the youth, however, it is a sign of a casual, fun lifestyle. For some, it is a sign of opulence. To and I will attest to have been a victim to that, because I used to think that, oh, all right, I'm going to walk into a restaurant and I'm not going to create a fuss because I eat everything. You can feed me anything. I'm not going to be fussy like some vegetarians whose only options are salads and potato. And I'm the complete opposite of that now. So that's with my immediate circle. But with respect to Generation Z in
Hmm.
particular, especially the young activists that I have the extreme honor of being in touch with, there are so many amazing folks in India, young people as young as 11, 12, some 16-year-olds, 18-year-olds, who are they're just at the top of their game at such a young age. There's a young activist, Ayan, from Uttar Pradesh, who has vowed to walk a distance equivalent to from between Kashmir and Kanyakumari within his building compound to raise awareness about veganism. He's live streaming his walks and talking to people about all the different aspects that relate to this. And
Hmm.
because he is an athlete, this is walking is how he's talking about it.
Hmm.
And then there are these young activists who are talking about intersectionality within them,
Hmm.
because we do have to realize that vegans are also human, and the issues that plague human society are also visible within the vegan society.
Hmm.
Whether it is speaking from a place of privilege, or or not getting to hear enough of marginalized voices.
Hmm.
And I am so glad to report that the youth today are much more aware of that and are taking it into their hands to make sure that this diverse community is more inclusive and also more representative.
I'm so glad to hear that the land of Ahimsa is waking up, because I think this is what the world needs, for India to wake up and lead this movement. because I think the fundamental, the culture is there, the spiritual background is there. This is where ahimsa was born. The concept of ahimsa was born, right? So I'm so happy to see this blossoming. I also want to talk about the health issues. Okay, Indians I know have a genetic predisposition to having very narrow arteries compared to every other group of people. And because we have very narrow arteries, the arteries can get clogged easily. And this is why when we consume animal products, Indians get heart disease faster than anyone else. We know that. And yet, why is the government, promoting dairy? Because dairy is the leading cause of this, right? Have have we not seen a rise in heart disease compared to the rise in consumption of dairy in India? Dr. Ahuja? Hold on. I'm going to unmute you. Okay. Oh, you have to unmute yourself. Go
Yeah.
ahead.
So definitely, I mean, it's a clear. I think these are two clear parallel lines. As the
Mhm.
consumption of dairy and other animal derived products have increased in India, so have lifestyle related problems, be it diabetes or obesity or cholesterol, heart disease, stroke, and these diseases are way onto the rise. And it's very amazing to see how the concept of health and dairy is fed into the Indian citizens right from the birth, that milk is good, etc., etc.
Mhm.
Whereas it is clear that every species produces milk, to meet the nutritional demand for their own babies.
Mhm.
And how does the milk from a cow or a buffalo, which is meant for their own babies, can fit the nutritional requirement of humans is beyond my understanding. Having said that, uh, I think dairy industry largely has been playing, on the cards of dairy being rich in calcium and protein, and that's the USP. Because anyway, let's be honest, it's not good in any other nutrient. These two are the USP. Have been really playing around it, but to an extent that people think that that's the only way to get calcium and protein, whereas there are some really simple plant-based food that we consume in our day-to-day lives that are so rich in calcium, protein. I mean, if we talk about calcium, uh, modest bhindi,
Mhm.
bhindi one cup of it has 82 milligram of calcium. One orange has 55 milligram of calcium. Just a tablespoon of chia seed has almost 90 milligram of calcium. And similarly, protein. All plant-based food are rich in protein,
Yeah.
and some are excellent sources like soya bean and moong dal. So soybean, just one cup has around 30 grams of protein, and moong dal 24 grams. And but of course, the plant-based food products are so rich and are so common in a diet, but yet when we talk about calcium and protein, we talk about dairy. So of course, it's through the relentless advertising that
Mhm.
dairy has really put that concept in the head of the masses.
Mhm.
And on the contrary, let's talk about the health hazards. There are plenty of it. There are researchers which have shown that the countries that consume most amount of dairy have the highest rate of osteoporosis.
Mhm.
And that's because the animal protein, which is there in milk and meat, etc., it leaches out the calcium in our bones. So even though dairy is high in calcium, because it also contains animal protein, it leaches out the calcium it leaches out the calcium from our bones. And
Right.
saturated fat, it's very dairy is really high in saturated fat. And saturated fat, as you rightly said, it's bad for health, because Indians are any which ways very predisposed to cardiac conditions because of having narrow arteries. And the cholesterol and the saturated fat can cause these arteries to narrow them further and cause heart disease.
Right. Right. Yeah. India also has, I think, 60 to 80% of the people who cannot really digest lactose. Is that the statistic?
Yes, 75% of people.
75%. Okay.
Yes.
So, really, we are poisoning ourselves by consuming this kind of food. I mean, I was doing it to myself. Okay. This is why I know. When I found out that when I went vegan in 2008, and I realized that all my arthritic pains, all my sinus problems, and all my allergies were just a reaction to the dairy I was consuming. It just disappeared once I went vegan. And then I realized that my mother died of a heart disease at the age of 60, very young. And that was because of her dairy consumption, perhaps. My dad had arthritis for the last 40 years of his life. That was because of dairy consumption, because I had the same condition that he did. So much suffering that we go through with this misinformation that we are fed. Um, so, Pareen, getting back to the vegan movement, how do we spread the word on? I mean, I know Amul is doing a good job of spreading the word, because they're saying all these things and they're putting it out there in the mainstream media. But how do we spread the word to the villages as quickly as possible? Basically, we have to tell the villagers what you're eating is what we all need to be eating. Only thing they're lacking is calories. Make sure that they have enough food, then they'll be healthy, right? So that's the only thing we lack, right? The calories that people need. So how do we spread the word out? I mean, do you have like a youth core of vegans you could form to do that?
I think that's a brilliant idea, because we have a lot of urban youth
Hmm.
who are intrigued about what really happens in rural areas,
Mhm.
and a lot of urban youth who still have families running farms in rural areas.
Mhm.
So, and yes, one thing that I do want to point out is, especially small dairy farmers, they do not even consume a single drop of the milk,
Right.
because they barely get anything for that produce.
Right.
Uh, they try to sell whatever they can get. In fact, even when you go to their homes as a guest, I've had this experience personally in Sikkim and in Gujarat, where they profusely apologized for not being able to offer the milk from the cows that they owned,
Mhm.
because they had to sell it off to the cooperative.
Right. Right.
So, raising this awareness in rural areas, firstly, we'll have to look at first or second generation migrants
Mhm.
who still have who still have families operating dairy businesses,
Mhm.
and see how they can change things back at home. That is one thing. Second is already what PETA has done by encouraging Amul, which already has such a vast established network. It's backed by
Right.
the government,
Right.
and it has such a vast network. All it will take for Amul is to say, do this instead of that.
Right.
That's all it will take.
Right.
So now what we need to do is make sure that Amul is willing to do it. And the only way they'll be willing to do it is when they see profits.
Well, you mentioned something just now, Pareen, that Amul is backed by the government. So, how is the government involved in this? And is this why Amul is so panic stricken? Because there must be some discussion going on behind closed doors that we don't know about that makes them so panic stricken. So, how is the government helping Amul, Dr. Ahuja?
Um, as we know, Amul is of course a large cooperative, but other than that, the overall milk uh, industry in India contributes over to 4% to the entire GDP of the country, which
Hmm.
is huge. I mean, just for one industry to contribute over 4% is huge. So that is one reason why these industries are supported because, as you said, it's a vicious cycle of economy as well as, what's sustainable and the cruelty and the health. And
Right.
these companies, of course, are running for their own profits and would not pay any attention to the environmental or health or, ethical consequences. But I think the government of India can, and as the consumer preferences are changing, I'm sure there will be definitely more inclination towards supporting the plant-based businesses and supporting the plant-based industry. And for that matter, we have also been reaching out to the government so that we can generate more beneficial, sustainable, and futuristic industry and economy and
Hmm.
livelihood for farmers as well as better opportunity for India to fly on and take advantage of this vegan opportunity that we have received, not just by producing it for the masses who require here, but also for importing, because there is a huge demand for vegan food in
Hmm.
abroad, and we can definitely benefit from it. So I'm sure that there will be an inclination as the consumer demands change, and
Right.
these companies will also like they are launching other vegan products would launch vegan milk as well.
Yeah, I mean, speaking of growing business, I mean, in abroad, clearly the vegan business is the one that's booming right now. It's not the meat industry. We have warehouses full of stuff that people don't want to buy, and they're trying to unload it on others. Okay, so India becoming a vegan economic powerhouse has a huge potential for that, because India is a tropical country, still has still has very fertile soil, still has the monsoons coming regularly. We haven't yet messed that up enough with our climate. So this is a time for India to basically become the leader in this renaissance of the planet to a completely vegan world. I mean, India should lead this. What do you think? I mean, I think India should lead this. Okay, I really think that Indians around the world are also, saying we need to lead this.
Absolutely, truly, and I think it's on its way. I mean, the change is on its way, and
Mhm.
we'll soon. We have already started seeing the change, and we'll soon be seeing more and more, businesses venturing into it. As I said, there already are conventional dairy and meat businesses abroad that are now venturing into plant-based
Right.
because they see the profit and they see that it's more sustainable in a longer run. And I think India would follow soon.
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad you brought up the example of the jackfruit industry in Kerala. Uh, I mean, jackfruits are the favorite fruits of the elephants, because you can see, it's designed for an elephant. No one else can eat it except with a knife, and Uh, but I'm glad that Kerala is jumping on the bandwagon, because the demand for jackfruit is only going up. throughout the world.
That's not just abroad, even in India, due to the pandemic, a lot of people just in 2020, around the start of the pandemic, people were really, really scared of eating meat, and they were largely consuming jackfruit as an alternative. And it was all over the newspapers that the jackfruit prices, rose up by 120%. That's a huge growth, and that was just, I'm just talking about India. So I think there's a great potential there. That there's a huge potential in plant-based industry, being a tropical country with great, fertility of the soil, and we still have good amount of agricultural land. We still are agricultural-based country
Right.
or economy. So there's a huge potential. And having said that, I think. Uh, we will definitely be seeing more and more, industries making that change, and uh, we are just hoping that even the large players do so.
Yeah, I mean, it's inevitable, right? So I know that to really bring back the jackfruit and the Western Ghat forests, we just have to take care of the elephant, because the elephants do a great job of spreading jackfruits around, because they eat
Absolutely.
the jackfruit and then they poop the seeds, 100 kilometers away. So, so imagine, Pareen, a future in which India's forests are back and everyone is eating healthy meals, and we are setting an example for the whole world. Is that the kind of future you want for India, or do you want a future in which Amul keeps growing its dairy business?
You already know my answer to that.
It's a very leading question. Okay, I understand.
It's. I think we just need to make India a bigger sadhana forest.
Hmm,
Keep expand. Just bringing back our native forests,
right.
eating plants, letting the animals be. It is so simple that I think people are just perplexed by the simplicity of this.
Hmm,
And sometimes that is why there is so much opposition. Even, for instance, people will try to give all kinds of excuses to keep Amol going, whether it's livelihoods or something mentioned in some mythological texts, or this is something that we've been doing for hundreds or thousands of years. um, there is definitely resistance to change,
hmm.
but there is also a growing population of change makers,
Right.
and that's what I think we can bank on and build, not just a beautiful, kind vegan India, but a beautiful, kind vegan world
Right.
for all kinds.
For all kinds. Yeah.
I think,
Imagine a.
yeah, and as uh, Pareen rightly said, that because we have been, people give excuses that we have been consuming this for years now, and they give mythology, and all kind of thing. We have been doing a lot of things in the past as a society. We had a lot of culture, that that was not fit, to follow
Hmm,
today, and we left it as we move ahead as society view culturally. And I think it's time that we do as a society, by leaving animals to be on their own, and stop exploiting them. And as much will benefit animals, it will benefit us, because of course, as we know, all of this is interlinked. The ecological crisis, is interlinked with the exploitation we do to these animals, the animals that
hmm.
we grow for consumption. And the health crisis today, talk about the non-communicable diseases like heart disease and diabetes, etc. Talk about the pandemics that we are facing
Right. Right.
or the pandemics that we have faced in the past. These are all interlinked, and even the world hunger. So you just were talking about the caloric intake, which is deficient in the poor section of a society,
Mm,
or the rural section of a society, is also somewhere interlinked with this, because we have been feeding so much. I mean, channeling it through animals so that we can consume their byproducts, instead of feeding those plants or crops to the human population directly.
right.
So I think all of this is interlinked, and as much as we take care of our environment and the other non-human animals which are there to share the space with us, I think we will be taking care of ourselves and our future.
Absolutely. As you said, we are all growing up. So just like a child weans from the mother, it's time for humanity to wean from our mother cow and say, thank you, mother, for feeding us for this long, for 10,000 years. And now it's time for us to grow up as a species and take care of you. Now it's time to take care of our elders. It's beautiful. It's beautiful with the world that we are getting into, we're stepping into.
I'm gushing at the mere thought. I cannot stop smiling. It's and I believe that it's going to happen. I hope that this happiness is contagious, and you catch on to some of it, and uh, be free from all kinds of conditioning. Take your
Right.
blinders off and just come home to yourself, like you say. Coming home to ourselves, to our compassionate selves,
Right.
and seeing that compassion for all lives is infinitely sustainable.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Uh, how about the tradition of Krishna and Dairy? Do we have to address that? I mean, I would love for people to understand the symbolism of Krishna's stories and see the beauty of the symbolism. I mean, this is how our ancestors coded these morals for us to understand. In symbolic stories like the stories of Krishna. But we take some of those stories literally, and the rest we know is symbolic, right? And that's, to me, it's like, well, what happened here? Why is that symbolic and not this? Why are we not all lifting mountains with our little finger like Krishna did? And of course, we know we cannot do that. Only Krishna can do that. But Krishna can eat butter, so I can eat butter. Excuse me. There is something wrong there, right? In taking that literally. So, can we write these little stories and spread it to people? You know, PETA India, do you have a big network that we can spread to people these stories of Krishna and interpret them correctly?
Yeah, of course. We all we need is an expert to interpret the Krishna stories.
Yeah, I'd be happy to do that for you. I'll be happy to send you my interpretation of Krishna's stories. It's actually not mine, and I took it from lots of people. I'm a systems engineer, which means I steal liberally from everyone around me and put it together. So, yeah, it's education, education, education. That's the number one thing.
The more you spread it, uh, the better it goes.
Yeah, but we are ready for it. We are all now that in the pandemic we are all sitting in our homes thinking about what we have done. Now you see, now I tell people, and I see all these people walking around with masks on their faces. I tell them we are all Jains now. 'Cause that's what the Jain monks used to do, right? They still
Yeah,
do that.
yeah,
So, so we need to also adopt ahimsa from the Jains
for sure.
throughout the world. So thank you so much. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for your service. Thank you for the work that you do. And let us know how we can help you. Is there something you can tell us about how we can help you, Dr. Ahuja?
I think you guys are already helping plenty, and just as you said, just keep spreading the word, and uh, you know keep encouraging people and keep encouraging these industries, and let's create that consumer demand that that would really make these companies change, and see that it's nobody else but the consumers who are dictating this change.
Yeah, it's the people on the ground. Pareen, any last words?
Well, I will just echo what Dr. Kiran has said. It is really us. It's upon us to excuse me, create change within ourselves and then to effect it outwards, and through education of the masses as well as our policymakers.
Mhm.
I think it's we need to find the perfect balance or between grassroots efforts and lobbying efforts so that we can create effective change to the within the human civilization. Come
Right,
together as a species for all species.
right.
And yeah, thank you so much.
Congratulations, Dr. Ahuja, for amplifying our voices so much in India. Okay, we are so grateful to you for doing that.
Thank you so much, and it's of course it feels really good to be heard. So
Yes,
thank you.
yeah, yeah. It's good to hear you also.
Thank you so much, Salesh. It's been a pleasure talking to you today.
Sure, my
And
pleasure.
Pareen, because I have been speaking to Pareen for past 2 days, and it was a pleasure to meet her here.
Okay, it's the first time you're seeing her.
Yeah,
Yes, first time I'm seeing.
Awesome.
yeah. We've
That's
never met
wonderful.
earlier. Yeah.